Welcome back to the Circle Club. I am here with the man, the myth, the fucking legend, Corey of What's Next. Let's go, my man.
Thank you.
How
Thank you
you
for the
doing?
intro. I appreciate that. He took the shades off. My man's got his shades on all week on his TikTok. So I know he meant it. I'm
Yeah,
doing good, dude. How you
I
doing?
gotta, I gotta show respect to you. When I come on here with you, my man. Let's dive into this. She-Hulk, She-Hulk, She-Hulk. Now, you and I sort of have
Mm,
similar but different opinions on this, which is good. That's what we
mm,
like to see here at the Circle Club, different opinions, people going back and forth. But what did you think about
mm.
episode 1 and 2 so far?
Yeah, I thought episode one particularly was my favorite. I really
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed the kind of process of her going through the learning with Bruce, the kind of different ideologies on how they feel about being the Hulk and what their
Mm-hmm.
responsibility is towards it. I like that they knocked it out of the way right off the bat too, right? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of elements in the first episode I enjoyed. The second episode I thought was pretty good. Fell off a little bit compared to the first. But it was her taking that first step and dealing with really being the She-Hulk, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a good way to go about it, right? Get her powers out the way, understand how that works. Now we're getting into how this is changing her life from just not being Jennifer Walters, but more so being She-Hulk, attorney at law, Jennifer Walters that we know
Mm-hmm.
as of today. So I think that was great because that's just the reality of the situation. When you are a Hulk, right? At any moment things could go astray, so people are going to be very cognizant of that, and I think it was reflected within this episode.
Absolutely, yeah. I felt that I really liked how they sort of polarized the experiences, right? Now, let me preface what I'm gonna say with Miss Marvel, one of my favorite shows right now. WandaVision, you love. I know Corey,
Mm,
you love WandaVision. I know this show's gotten a lot of
mm,
heat from some of these weird misogynistic dudes. Like they just hate women, and that's what it is. That's not what we're doing here. We're critiquing the show, and in particular scenes and moments and things that we didn't like. One thing that sort of like stuck with me is this felt very like millennial, and like what I mean by that is there was this sort of like trend in the 2000 like late 2010s and early 2010s where it was very just like I'm a boss, I'm empowered, all this stuff, and like you saw it from men, women, black, white, whatever, and it feels like that's very heavy of like what's sort of happening here. And I think sometimes there's instances where it feels almost cheesy or it feels like they're giving a speech or something, and that's kind of like the
mm,
dialogue is kind of throwing me off, and even Bruce in the beginning, like it kind of bothered me a little bit when like Bruce is a genius, right? And so when when she was sort of not mansplaining, womansplaining like her experience to him, I thought that was a little bit silly. I thought they should have chose maybe someone else to do that because I think if anyone's gonna understand, it's Bruce, right? I mean, he's close. He's closest with
mm,
Natasha. Um, and he's the one basically trying to tell her like this is not going to be an easy situation, especially for you. So I kind of thought that was kind of a
mm,
misdirected point. I do agree, I thought episode 1 was stronger than 2, but 2 definitely gave us a lot more
mm,
to sort of play with, and I kind of think the pacing overall of this show has been very quick. However, it's been quick, but it sort of wraps up everything in this 2 episodes. Now we can kind of play with the character,
mm,
right? Now that we've established the world and who
mm,
she is and all that, I think now it sort of gives us a direction to go with, right?
mm. Yeah,
Uh,
and I mean, yeah, no, I agree with you, right? Like I think that's why you have to knock these things out right off the bat, like I was saying, right? And I kind of alluded to these things within my TikTok I made on this show when I predicted it.
go check
So
that out. It's
coming
right
right
there
into
on the screen for us.
so speaking of like this episode coming into like what it's gonna do moving into the third episode, to your point, right? And transitioning that character forward, right? It provides her with her first conflict, right? Like she is defending an individual who was an enemy of Bruce, right? And although they
Yes.
kind of squashed that that's not a real thing anymore,
Yeah.
well, it kind of contradicts itself with Emil breaking out of prison, right? And I think
Right.
something that's interesting to that, right? They show the Shang-Chi scene. So like, is
Mm-hmm.
that what they're representing as the breaking out of prison, right?
Yeah.
Because from what we understand, the Thunderbolts are going to be coming around. Emil Blonsky alludes to it with his 7 pen pals, right? And we can get into that on the What's Next channel. But the thing for me is like she's going to have to now be this individual who leans on the good side, but is going to be defending most likely a lot of bad people, right? Because a lot of these people who are going to be facing these conflicts within court are probably not the ones that people are worried about, right? So it's going to be like Abomination. So I'm interested to see how she how she ends up reacting and doing something because of this, right? Because I think ultimately at the end of the show, she will take that turn. She's going to be a good guy, right? Yes. So I think she's going to finally get into that mode of I can't just sell my soul to be a lawyer. Correct. I got to accept who I am at the end of the day.
And that's another thing too with Marvel superheroes and characters and all that. Like one of the things that they did so well in Black Panther, in my opinion, was it wasn't as on the nose some of the things, but like you knew that they were talking about being black in America versus being black in Africa, right? And I think that there's an opportunity for them to do that same thing with being a woman. First off, there's not a ton of women superheroes out there in the Marvel universe at this time. There's not a lot of women in the lawyer world, right? So I think there's going to be these parallels that we see, and I think that is how they can execute it better than some of these like, little phrases and catchphrases that she's saying to Bruce and other people. Something else I wanted to point out as well was I think that when you talk about writing, there's always a protagonist and an antagonist, and that protagonist usually has some sort of inner conflict. They know someone close to them, that person they were in love with ends up turning bad, whatever, right? And her internal conflict, as you said, is going to be the fact that she's defending these bad people even though she's good. And I think by the end of this show, we may see a Matt Murdock come into play, or someone else to sort of influence her to go that opposite side. I think what she's going to realize is, yes, these people do need representation, or whatever the case may be. And there was also sort of this little line, I don't know if you caught it, about the prison system. And she was saying how, we really shouldn't keep people caged. There should be rehabilitation. So I think that's also a really important foundation to her character as well. So I don't think she's going to really perceive them as all bad. However, she's going to have to come to that sort of come to Jesus moment, if you will, of I'm a superhero. And that's also sort of the opposite of what she wanted to be, because as you said before we started shooting, her goal was always to be a lawyer, never to be a superhero. She told Bruce the same thing. So now she sort of has all these different conflicts and things going on. And I think the way that they've set it up, even though in my personal opinion it hasn't been my favorite, I think now we've set it up where there's so many different directions that they can go for the rest of the season. But where do you think that She-Hulk is going next, in next episode, episode 3, now that we've seen her come to this realization, oh shoot, maybe Abomination isn't a good guy? Where do you think that's heading?
Yeah, I think she's going to go through this trial, obviously. It's going to be her first real test, and it's going to provide her, I think, with some of the base foundational reasons that lead to that motivation in the end to be that superhero, right? I think she's going to end up getting trapped into having to do things that I don't think she wants to do, in the sense of like, I think she's going to come to realize that Emil really isn't this individual who is reformed and is totally blissful, right? Like she's going to go through this process and she's going to realize that she is, like I said, releasing bad individuals. And I think to your point that you were making before with Daredevil, and that's why Matthew Murdock, especially in the first season of Daredevil that was on Netflix, leaves this big conglomerate, right? He goes and starts his own practice to defend the people he thinks that need to be defended, right? So I think there are going to be those superheroes and people out there that need that type of lawyer to protect them, right? And I think that individual is going to be She-Hulk, right? But I think the process of this trial, and I think there's going to be some type of hands in the back working it because of the Thunderbolt situation, and Emil Blonsky clearly being not just like escaping from that prison, was with Wong. So I'm just intrigued to see how they finesse her or him out of the the system himself. And I think because of that, Jen's gonna feel like she didn't really earn it on her own, right? And I think it's going to be some type of situation like that because of the corruption of what's probably going on. And it's most likely Val who's in the background doing a lot of these things. So I would not be surprised if Val pops up. But we're going to see glimmers, I think, of that corruption within this episode specifically.
Wow. All right, man. I'm excited to see where we're heading next. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think about episode 1 and 2? What are some of the things that you did like? What are some of the things you didn't like? Don't harbor so much on the negative. Tell us what you like, what you're excited about, what's next, right? And speak of what's next, make sure you guys head over to our the What's Next channel, because over there we're going to be talking about She-Hulk and the Wolverine preview. Like, what? Like, that just kind of came out of nowhere on us. And the little Eternals. We're going to be talking about a couple other Easter eggs that we saw over there as well. Make sure you guys comment, and if you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe, because we make new content every single week. Corey, see you in the next video.
Thanks, brother.